Our next step is to fold our fabric and get it ready to put the pattern on. This says to use the fabric efficiently. The fabric has only one selvage. Fold the fabric in the center lengthwise with the edges even. That's the first thing we are going to do. Also, if you notice, I made check marks in all these other steps that I have already done. So we're going to fold the fabric in half lengthwise, and we're going to put a couple of pins in there just to hold it together. Now my space is probably not big enough for you to see the whole entire thing, but we will do our best. These out of the way. So I'm supposed to fold this in half lengthwise, and I want the two edges even, so the selvage is there. And I laid that right on top of that one. I'm going to come all the way down here and lay that on top of that one. And I'm smoothing this. I am not worried about the two ends matching, the two short ends. This is where it needs to be matched. And I think I'm probably just going to put 3 pins along here, maybe 5. So I start in the middle, and then I'll put one about halfway to the end, and then I'll put one at the very end. I know you can't see this part, but it's really not that important, okay? Then I'm going to just fold this up so you can see what I'm doing on the other half. So this is the middle, and here. Now, I want to tell you, putting pins in is kind of tricky. There are a couple of ways that you can do it. On fabric, sometimes you can just pinch it a little bit and put the pin in. Oh, and you can't see what I'm doing. Sometimes you can just pinch it a little bit to put the pin in like that, and then just stick the pin through. That's not so easy to do when you have a pattern on top. So this is my suggestion. Don't ever do this on your mom or dad's really nice table. I have a cutting mat underneath mine, but if I didn't have a cutting mat, I could put a magazine underneath it because I don't want to scratch the table. So what you do is you push down until you touch the surface underneath, and then push through. Okay. So watch me do this again. I'm going to push down against the magazine until I know it's touching. And actually a piece of cardboard would probably be better because the pin wants to go through the magazine. Okay, so through there, so I push down, make a little bump with my finger, get my finger out of the way, and then push it through. You need to be able to see both the head and the point of each pin. If you take a pin and you stick it just straight through like that, as soon as you pick it up, it's going to do that, and that is no good. It has to be through both layers. Okay, so I'm going to move this magazine out of the way because I don't need it on this table. I'm going to scoot out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I have the fold next to me, and whenever I am laying out something, I like to have the diagram the same direction as the fabric is folded. So since I have the fold towards me, I have the diagram also with the fold towards me. And I'm going to have to move this around a little bit because I don't have a huge amount of space. Hopefully you'll have a little bit better space. Now, before we go on, I'm going to grab my pen real quick. And over here where it says place on fold, I'm going to write in great big letters, all caps, do not cut here. And we're talking about this edge right here. We are not going to cut on that side. Okay? Do not cut here. If we cut here, then your apron is cut into 2 pieces, and we don't want that. We want, this is just half of the apron, and after we cut it out and we unfold it, we will have one larger piece. So we want to make sure that the whole apron is on the fabric, and we want this dotted line that you cut right next to be near the edge. And remember, this side you don't have to have a lot of pins because you are putting it on the fold and we're not cutting there. So I'm going to put a pin here. Now normally I don't put pins perpendicular to the edge, but I can do that on this side because I'm not cutting on this side. Otherwise, I want all of my pins inside the cutting line. So the cutting line is this is a solid line. The stitching line is over here. I'm going to put my pins in between those two lines. So I'm going to put a pin down here at the other end. And then I'm going to put a pin at the very end since I'm down here. Let's see if I can slide this up a little bit more. And I want to keep this as flat as possible. If you notice, I'm not lifting it up in the air when I am pinning. Some kids want to lift up like this and stick the pins in. Don't do that because what happens is you'll get bubbles in your pattern. I'm now going to put my pin down at this end. And again, I'm putting it in perpendicular to the edge here, but it is inside the cutting line right here. Now remember, when we put the marks on, we did north, south, east, and west. Let me get just a little bit farther out. Oh, that's as far as it'll go. So if this is this, I'm in about the middle here. So smooth the pattern and put one up here by north where we put the mark with the highlighter. Now, I am not going to go in a circle and put the pins on because what happens is, and I don't know exactly why, but as we are pinning, if we go in a circle, we tend to push the pattern a little bit more than the fabric, and then we end up with a bubble somewhere. So let me get down here. So this was north, and we already have south done. We're going to put one for east. Now, if my camera would go out a little farther, I wouldn't have to do all this messing around. Okay, and here's our west. After the north, south, east, and west, then we're going to put one on the corners. So I've got one here. And remember, when we put it on the corner, we don't want any part of it sticking past the cutting line. And that's something your teacher is going to check before you can start cutting. If you hit a pin with your sewing scissors, it's going to damage them. So I'm going to put one on this corner right here. I already have one on this corner over here. I'm going to come down here, and I'm trying to keep this as flat as possible, but still be able to see it. So I'm going to put one right here on this corner, and this corner is already done. After that, we can do the ones that are in between. So along here, I have two. And here, if you notice when I put this on, I put it up close to the top, not right on the edge, but up close to the top. There's a little bit extra here. I did not put it smack dab in the middle because I've got to make my pocket, and my pocket's going to go down here. Okay, so I've got those two. I honestly don't need these pins on this edge over here anymore, so I'm just going to steal them off of there and put my pins in down at the bottom where they go. Okay, again, trying to keep everything flat while I'm doing it. I'm going to put the one in the middle first. Oh, I got way too many pins, but that's okay. One here. And it's okay. This actually has a narrower fold line on it, and we'll talk about that later. So it's not quite as wide as that, but we'll figure this out later. Okay? And then I have I don't think I'm going to put another one over here. You can if you want to. You might have shorter pins than mine. Mine are a little bit longer. I have to use this kind because my hand or my wrist was damaged several years ago when I fell down. Okay, now we've got to get the pocket on. And this one's a little bit different because we have to make sure that this is on the grain line. Now, if you notice, I have the top of each one of them going the same direction. Make sure when you check your fabric, you should put them so that the tops of each one are going the same direction. If you put it on like this, or if you put it on like this, you might actually, depending on your fabric, it could change the direction of how something's going to come out. So let me show you what I mean by that. This is some fabric that I have that I am in the process of making a mask out of. And if you notice, it has these little leaves going across. Now, if I wanted them to go across my face, I could do that. If I want them to be standing upright, okay, then I would need to put it like this, okay? But if you have a directional print, it's really important. And if you think you might have a directional print, ask your teacher before you start putting pieces on. One time I had a little boy who was making an apron that had, it had orcas on it, so whales and orcas, and he put the pattern on upside down, so all of them were swimming upside down. Okay. So what we want to do is make sure that this is on the straight grain. If we just kind of plop this down here somewhere and cut it out, there's going to be too much stretch in the edges. The straight grain is the lengthwise part, and if you notice, if I pull on it, it doesn't move very much. If I pull across, there's a little bit of stretch, but if I pull on the diagonal, there's a lot of stretch. So we don't want that to happen. We want this to be as straight up and down as we can. So I'm going to start out just by putting a pin in one end of the arrow. Okay. Then I'm going to take my tape measure. If you have a ruler that's long enough, that would work too. But I'm going to put my the end of my tape measure here, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm right about 6 1/4 inches. But mainly, I don't even care what the number is. I'm just going to keep my thumb right where that's supposed to be. I'm going to lay that back down on the edge of the fabric, and then the edge of my arrow should be right at about the same spot. And I'm going to put another pin over here. Now, this should be perpendicular to the edge. This right here should be perpendicular to the edge. And it doesn't look like it is because I cut this off kind of wacky. But if I measure here, from here to here, it's a little past an inch. It's about 1 1/8. And if I measure right there, also 1 1/8. So I do know that I have it on in the spot that it should be. So again, think of a map. I'm going to go, I did the 2 arrows, the ends of the arrow first. Then I'm going to go north. I'm going to come down here to south. I'm going to come over here and do east. And I'm going to put the ones over here for west. And I'm ignoring my phone for right now. And then I'm going to make sure that I have one by each corner. Again, you got to make sure that the corner is covered and none of the pin is sticking out. Okay? You want it to be by the corner, but you don't want any part of the pin sticking out past the line. I think I'm just going to move this one down a little bit, and these two I think will hold that side. Okay, I have it all ready to go, and I am going to The next step that I have to do will be to start cutting it out. Once you cut it out, do not throw your scraps away, because there are a couple of different stitches that you're going to need to practice as you are getting ready to sew your apron together, and you can use this fabric for your practice. So don't throw your scraps away until after your project is completely done. So it's all pinned and ready to go, and I'm going to say bye for now.